Okay, everybody. So today we're going to start Unit 2, which is all about cells. Up to this point, we've kind of learned a little bit about a lot of things, but we're kind of going to deep dive here in Unit 2. Our focus today is going to be on intro to cells themselves. We're going to learn about what they look like and their structure. In terms of our homework today, we're really going to focus in on the A page. So we're going to be doing a diagram and kind of learning about the different cell parts and their functions. So I'm going to deep dive into today's entry. We are going to do entry 8 today. Focus in my screen here. And the real idea here is about cells and how they are organized. And so that really talks into cell structure and overall function of those different parts. So before we get into that, I just want to recap what we have done so far in terms of kind of addressing our first entry, characteristics of life. And we made a list of all the different things that we consider to be life. And we've talked about recently how cells obtain and make and use energy. We did photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And now, today, our main focus is on the one of life being made from cells. So there's this nice little video here that kind of highlights just the introduction to cells. So I'm going to play that now. If it doesn't play for you, just kind of pause and go to the slideshow and watch it for yourself. For whatever reason, it doesn't want to play for, oh, there we go. So hopefully that video just gave you a little bit of an idea of all the different things that cells do and just exactly how many cells were made of. It's kind of ridiculous. But I hope you realize that there's a lot of different types of cells. They had different structures, they had different jobs, and we've talked before about how structure leads to function. And today we're going to kind of learn about the basic parts that are in a lot of different types of cells. So in your notebook, on the very next fresh entry, we are going to do entry 8 today. So on the right-hand side, go ahead and put 8A. And our essential question, go ahead and pause and write that down at the top, is how are cells organized and how do their different structures lead to different functions? So today our job is to learn about the parts of the cell. And you might know a couple parts already just from all the science classes that you've had before. But our entry today is a little bit unique because we're not only going to write on the A page, we're also going to have a flap, meaning that we have so much info that we're going to have our A page, which will kind of, you can see on the right, have a table on it. And then we're also going to have like a little separate sheet of paper where we will have a picture of a cell, and we're going to create a flap for it. And then we'll tape it down so that we kind of have two A pages going on. And I just kind of wanted to show you what that looked like. So to do this, we have some different interactives that you can use. And instead of me just going through a bunch of slides where I tell you what each and every part of a cell is, you're going to kind of get a chance to explore that yourself. So you're going to click on one of these two options. If I just click on it, it'll take you to explore parts of the cell. So you're going to hit play. Later on, if you want to actually like play a game with it, you can. But for now, you're just going to explore. And when you explore, you can do animal cells. You can see along the top animal cells, or you can switch over to a plant cell or a fungal cell or even a bacteria. But we're going to kind of focus on an animal cell today. And when you hover over the different pieces, you can click on them. So for example, the big part in the middle is the nucleus. And then you can see over here on the right, you can turn the sound off too if you don't want to hear the sound, but it'll tell you what it does. And so if I then click on these red guys, those are mitochondria, which you might remember is where that whole cellular respiration thing takes place. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I feel like you guys learned that at some point and then it's burned into your brain forevermore. So that's kind of how we're going to explore and learn the different pieces. And then you can also see what the different functions are. To kind of give you an idea of what the other interactive is, if I click on that one, it's very similar. You can choose what type of cell you want to start out with. If you scroll, I'm going to choose an animal cell, and it kind of gives me a picture of one. And you can hover over the different pieces and do the same thing. Like, I know that's a nucleus, and it'll tell me all about it. And then I can click on this red part and go back to the diagram. Again, you can turn off the sound too. If I go to these guys right here, I know that that's a mitochondria, and it tells me all about it. So there's two different options for interactives. You can choose which one. You do a little bit of both if you really want to. But those are what you're going to end up utilizing today when we want to learn the different parts. On the next slide, you can see kind of what we're going to do. And here is a cell diagram of an animal cell, and I have included the different parts that I want you guys to label. And you have two options here. I realize not everybody has a printer or access to a printer or computer ink and paper and all of that. So if you would like to draw this on a separate sheet of paper, or at least attempt to draw it as best you can on a separate sheet of paper, you can do that. It doesn't have to look exactly like the one that I have here on the page, but the things that you need to label are listed at the bottom, so those need to be in there somewhere. If you do have a printer or have access to one, I have a printable version of the document. You can click on it in the upper right hand corner and just print it out if you'd like, and then that could be your flap. Otherwise, you're again doing it just kind of on a separate sheet of paper. So this is not in your notebook on one of your notebook sheets of paper. This is just on a separate blank sheet of paper. And you can tear one sheet out from the back of your journal if you'd like, but we're going to end up taping it into our 8A page. So you're going to first go through and have your cell and identify all of the different pieces that it is pointing to. And even if you're not printing it out, I think if you go to the Google Doc version, it's much easier to see in terms of what the different pieces are. So you can see the diagram, you can see everything that is asked of you to label. You'll use everything only once if that helps you. Because this is an animal cell, there's a couple of things that are in plants that are not in animals. So I just wanted to highlight in the bottom right there, there's a couple of things that plants have that are important to know about, but aren't in the animal cell. Okay. So once you have gone through and kind of labeled your cell, we're going to color code it. In the past, I believe it was entry 5, you guys learned about biomolecules and different types of categories of biomolecules. And I really want you to be able to see where that comes out in the parts of the cell. So I've listed here on the slide for you things to specifically color code. So once you find wherever the cytoplasm is mostly water. So you're going to color code that blue. Water is not a biomolecule, but it's super important for cells. The other 4 are biomolecules. So lipids are found in cell membranes. And so there are tons and tons of membranes in cells. So it specifically tells you where in the cell to actually color it yellow. Same thing with green, where our DNA is stored, which is the nucleus. So you would end up coloring the nucleus green. Proteins, and then carbohydrates. So once you have a cell that is labeled, you're going to color code it. And I did include a picture of mine so that you can kind of see what that looks like in a later slide if you want to look at it for comparison purposes. Here's an example of what mine ended up looking like. And you can kind of zoom in on it and see. But I color coded it. I even colored in the boxes to kind of match which biomolecule it went with. And then I put a key for it right here on the bottom. And a lot of the organelles, which are the tiny structures within a cell, they're called organelles. They are made of proteins or nucleic acids, but then they're surrounded by a membrane. So to highlight that, I just kind of outlined each one of those boxes in yellow to represent lipids, but the inside of them is made of something else. So you can kind of see that in the picture. And we're going to end up, as you can see here on the left picture, taping it onto our 8 page. Underneath the flap, we are going to learn about the different functions of those cell parts. So we're going to create a table under that flap. So these listed at the right are the specific organelles that I want you guys to learn a little bit more about. So on your A page, as you can kind of see on mine right here on the right, I just made a table. I don't have the graph paper lined one, so I ended up using 3 lines for every organelle with a little room to spare at the bottom. But you can see the list here in typed form if that's a little easier. So what you're going to do is use the interactives that you used, the ones on the previous slide right here, to really identify the function of the different organelles that I want you to look at. You can also use this video here down at the bottom about introduction to cells to help you. I think it's a really good intro that kind of just puts it all together for you. So definitely watch the video either way, but your job is to, for example, the nucleus. Tell me what the nucleus's job is. And then you're just going to draw that part by itself. And you can use your flap drawing to help you if you'd like, or you can use any part of the video or interactive. Just kind of a rough sketch so that you have that for you. And so that's the major goal today, is to finish the table and to also draw and color in your specific animal cell. If you want, there are some more additional resources. So if you like to color, there's a coloring page here. If you click on it, you can go to that coloring page. It shows you the cell as a factory. So it's kind of cool. It gives you an idea of the different jobs of a cell in the form of a factory. So for example, the nucleus over here is the boss, right? It tells everybody what to do. The lysosome is the one that breaks a lot of things down. So it's kind of the cleanup crew. The mitochondria in the upper right? It's making ATP. It's the powerhouse of the cell. So it gives you an idea of what the different cell parts are for. And you can color it. So if you're bored, you can just kind of print that out and color and learn something about the cell at the same time. There's a cell wrap. So if music helps you remember what different parts of a cell do, then by all means. And then this is a cool video that kind of, similar to the one I showed you earlier, goes through the different parts of a cell and kind of shows you how they interact on the cellular level, which is pretty cool to watch. So it's worth the 6 minutes of your life. And that's really it for today. So your goal is to explore the structure of cells, and then work through the diagram labeling, and then identifying the function of different organelles and completing that table on your A page. And that's the homework, is to go through and finish out the A page in the flap. That's it, everybody. Thanks for listening.